Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Be the Right Club Today podcast. It is Masters Week, and supposedly Mr. Tiger Woods is going to be playing. It's Wednesday today, and as of about 2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, Tiger Woods has said he is going to be playing this week. Hal, your thoughts?
Well, I'm happy. I'm surprised. I love watching Tiger play. I think he's the best of all time. And I think me, along with a lot of the rest of the people in the world, were hopeful that one day he'd get to play again.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be quite this early, though, right? Talk a little bit about, we were talking off air a little bit, but talk a little bit about, obviously, we've talked about the golf course. We'll talk a little bit more about the golf course. But one of the things that everybody says, I haven't been there. There was an outside chance that I was going to get to caddy for Gurleen Kaur at the Anwal this year, but she ended up playing at the Chevron. But talk a little bit about how hilly that golf course is, and some of the challenges that Tiger might face from a just the conditioning and just walking the golf course standpoint.
I think the thing that shocked me the most the first time I got out behind the clubhouse. Because when you pull up to Augusta and you go down Magnolia Lane, you can't see any of the golf course. You just see the clubhouse. When I got on the other side of the clubhouse, I could not believe how up and down hills that golf course really is, starting at the first hole. And, whenever I heard Tiger was going to play this week, I couldn't really believe that this was going to be his first week because of that. As you know, I've suffered with joint replacement and everything else, and uneven lies, uphill, downhill, side hill lies cause pain, and you feel that. And I'm sure Tiger's going to have to deal with some pain. I mean, I think I don't know that you could ever go back to being perfect after you've been something like that.
Now, it was interesting to hear him in his interview talk about, somebody asked him what his doctors have said about if this is as good as it's going to get. And he said from a range of motion standpoint, like this was about it. He was where he was going to be, from a movement standpoint, but really the improvement could be from strength and from being out there more and playing more. The other thing we were joking about, I played in a tournament a couple of weeks ago and played 3 straight rounds for the first time in a long time. And I was so sore and so tired afterwards. And my wife, she's a physical therapist, and she was laughing at me talking about how out of shape I was. But, a lot of people forget how grueling walking and especially in tournament conditions, having to, be locked in over every shot, but then let alone at that place, and I think one thing that needs to be said, I think he got a fortunate break. This might've been on purpose by Augusta, but he got a fortunate break playing early on Thursday and late on Friday to give him some time to recover, because he talked about, his recovery process could take, even getting warmed up before the round and cooling down after the round is an extra hour or so, on each side that he didn't ever have to do before.
Well, I think Tiger's going to have a lot of issues that he's never dealt with before. But, to Tiger's credit, he's ahead of the curve when it comes to all that. His tenacity, his work ethic, he seems to rise to the occasion. He seems to be aware of what he's going to be dealing with and always seems to be prepared. It's one of the things I really admire about Tiger. He's not blindsided much. And I'm certain that this was well thought out for him to be at Augusta and for this to be where he's going to play again. One thing that I will add to this, he's running out of time. He couldn't wait forever. He still wants to win. I know he wants to win. And I know he'd love to add to that majors. And that's probably the biggest reason why he's there, is because he wants to try to win another major.
Yeah, I know that he's always been wired to only play if he thought he could win. A part of me being a dad, a part of me is hoping that he's kind of playing a little bit more for, or not more, but just from a nostalgia standpoint, to let Charlie go and see everything, and just because it's Augusta. Now, after watching him hit it and hearing, Freddie and Justin Thomas talk about how good he's hitting it, I think he's, from a golf swing standpoint, from a playing standpoint, he's probably right there to compete. But from a physical standpoint, who knows? But I know he's not wired this way, but there's a part of me that wishes he was going to, just to be there and get back into playing some golf, but I know everybody that knows Tiger says that that's not how he's wired. He's only showing up because he thinks he's got a chance to win.
I think most people are wired less on the nostalgia side. I mean, Tiger Woods is Tiger Woods, and no matter who's played out there, myself included, I don't like playing that doesn't feel like it represents who I am. You know that from being with me in here. I don't think Tiger will ever be that sort of guy. I think Arnold Palmer was different than everybody else. He played every day, and I don't think he really cared what he shot. I mean, I don't know that, but I care over every shot, and I wish I didn't, but I know Tiger cares over every shot.
So if he pulls off the miracle and contends this week, say I heard on ESPN they were talking about what would happen if he won. Would this be the greatest comeback of all time?
In my mind, yeah. As far as golf is concerned, I'd say it'd have to be.
Yeah. Well, how would you compare it? What do you remember about Mr. Hogan and the wreck and all that stuff?
I don't remember a whole lot about it. But I mean, everybody talks about how he won majors after that. So he was younger, though, if I recall history correctly. He was younger when he had that wreck than Tiger is now. And similar, though, they said he'd never walk again, which he did walk again and then won. So who knows?
I heard on ESPN this morning, they were talking about watching him in the practice round. He played 9 holes today, I think, and they were saying he was limping up and down the hills, and that's kind of what you had alluded to. I'm going to be really interested to see how soon he plays after this, if this is a one-off event for a while, or if he's going to start sneaking out and playing once every 3 weeks or so. I think it'll be, obviously it's so great to have him back in the game. I mean, have him back out there, I bet Masters telecast is always, super highly watched, but I bet the numbers are going to be really high in the morning tomorrow.
Probably so. To your first, wondering when he plays again, I just hope he does play again. I hope nothing happens here that kills his spirit for playing. And I dealt with pain for a long time trying to play golf, and I can tell you right now, it changes your golf swing. We steer away from pain if we keep from it. It takes a really committed person to do what you're trying to do through the pain. Yeah. And we talk about commitment on here all the time. When you add the other component of, okay, pain is coming, stay committed to that. And that's tough to do.
Yeah, especially if your good swings create the pain. That's when it's really difficult. Let's talk a little bit about your prep, a little bit about the Masters week. But how did you've said on here you didn't have as much success at Augusta as you wish you would have. How did you prepare for Augusta? Did you prepare any differently for this event than you would have any other event?
I did. I tried every way I could. I went in there early, trying to play by myself and just see if I could learn more about the golf course. It just didn't fit my eye. I could never stand up there and make it fit my eye. And, first hole never really bothered me that much, but the second hole, right off the bat, you need to turn that ball around that corner a little bit. And, you hit the little fade out there. It's going to land short of the hill, and it's going to be running to the right. It's never going to get on the downslope. And if it does, it barely gets on the downslope, which leaves you a really long second shot on the downslope. instead of hitting a draw that gets going and gets going down the slope, you end up with a, at that time we could have ended up with a mid iron into the green, but Hal Sutton very seldomly had a mid iron into that green because I couldn't really turn it around. And the ones that I did try to turn it around there, somehow I'd get off into the left rough and then it would run down there on the pasture and get in the creek.
Yeah.
And, it just didn't fit.
People talk about, Augusta favoring draws, favoring a guy that turns it over off the tee. Do you agree with that?
Definitely agree with that. It favors left-handers too, that fade the ball.
Yeah. Holes like 2 and 10 and 13. Do you have to work it on any other holes besides those 3? At least right to left. Oh yeah, 9. Yeah, 9. Nine's right to left too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The fairway opened up a lot on the left side of number 11 too. So, that was an awkward tee shot for a fader because the rough, the tree line kind of angled in towards the fairway a little bit there. So if you fade it, the tee was pointed down the right side of the fairway. And this is a lot of years ago. So it's been 20 years since I played Augusta. And I haven't been back. But 11 was always, it seemed to work better if you could draw it off that tee. So and if you could draw it on 15, you could get it down there a lot further too.
So here's kind of a loaded question, but did you look forward to Augusta week?
I can't say I ever looked forward to Augusta.
Really?
No, I looked forward to it when I was an amateur because I just never dreamed that I was ever going to be there.
Right.
And I made the cut the first time I went and didn't play all that well. I didn't play well at all on the weekend, but after I played there a couple of times, it proved that I didn't have what it took to conquer that golf course. So, and
that's so interesting because there's been not just long hitters win there, right? Zach Johnson won. Really good wedge players, but you were always a good distance wedge player. If you could go back and rewrite your approach to Augusta, would there be anything you try and do differently?
Well, I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it a lot. One of the things that you don't do as you age, Chase, you'll understand this, is you don't go back over those things that were really nightmarish for you. And, you don't try to figure it out because you don't have to go back there anymore.
Well, you had some success there. It wasn't like you missed the cut there every year. To me, it's from the outside looking in, it's like that's hollowed ground. It's heaven for golf, and it's but I have heard from obviously you and a bunch of guys on here how on the edge it is, and how it can if you're not completely on your game, it can definitely wreak havoc.
Well, very few times on the tour did we play a golf course that was as hilly as that golf course was. And, so you got radical stances, lies. The bunkers were strategically placed for the distance that I hit it. There were a lot of guys whenever I was playing that could carry the bunker on number 8, and I couldn't carry the bunker on number 8. And it was about a 285 carry from when I played it, and I just couldn't carry it that far. And so I was always trying to hit it as hard as I could hit it, which brought the left rough into play. And even if you kept it on the left side of the fairway, the green was so tucked in behind the trees that I couldn't, even if I could get the second shot there, I couldn't. It took a funny hook, a late hook, in other words.
Right.
And just awkward. I hope I'm able to kind of lay this out for people that are listening out there. The golf course is just a little bit awkward. And,
you've talked a lot about the second shot on 13, how that ball's so far above your stance, but it doesn't want to seem to turn over quite like it, quite like you'd expect it to.
Well, so, 13 is obviously one of those things. I've told you before, I hit a lot of shots right on the line that I was looking at, and it hit on the right side or in the creek, just expecting it to draw, and it won't draw. And then maybe the same week I'd hit the same shot again and say, okay, I'm not going to play it this time, and end up in the left bunker, the left azaleas, And then I'll tell you another awkward shot there, and you'll see it a lot this week. It's the second shot on number 11. Anytime that pin gets on the left side of that green, I can tell you most people hit it way over to the right over there. And it's because it seems like if you get it moving any to the left, it could go in the water. Yeah. And even if you hit a good shot.
Are those the fastest greens you guys play on?
If not the fastest, certainly right there. They're tipping the scales.
And is it because they're so hilly?
Well, the undulations are so difficult. You get it in the wrong place there. There are some flat lies, flat greens there that, it seems kind of normal when you put, but, we're starting right out of the gate. The first green, one of the fastest greens on the golf course. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you've seen it, some of the guys have really struggled putting on the first green.
With really, really fast greens like that, did you make any adjustments with equipment? I think we talked about this in a podcast a long time ago, but did you make any equipment adjustments? Did you try to hit off the toe? What did you get above the hole in one? What'd you do?
Yeah. Occasionally I'd try to hit it off the toe if I thought that would help. Really nothing you can do. Just calm your nerves and try not to think ahead. Try to stay in the present. That's, you asked me earlier if I had trouble sleeping at night. I didn't really have trouble sleeping at night, but, every now and then my mind would drift to where the next putt could end up. And as a golfer, when you've got a really difficult putt and it's downhill, and you've chosen a line, then you're going to stay committed to that line. You got to be willing to accept the consequences if it fails. And at Augusta, those consequences can be pretty severe. Yeah. And, I've seen people putt them off the green. I've seen, I don't think I've ever seen anybody put it in the water on 15, but trust me, that could happen.
Yeah. And, was it Tiger on 13 put it in the water like 3 or 4 Masters ago, and 3 or 4 of the Masters he played in ago.
I could see it happening a lot more at 15 than I could see it happening at 13. Yeah. 13, most of that right side of that green and the front of the green is fairly flat. The only way you can misfigure that is if you're coming from way back behind the pin for some reason, and you just, miss the speed by a bunch. 15, you don't have to miss the speed by a bunch. Yeah. And if that pin's in the wrong place, you could put it off there. I've chipped it into the water from behind the green. Yeah. So, and lots of people have done that.
Sure. When you played it as an amateur, did you get a caddy from Augusta?
I did.
Do you think for guys that have only played it once or twice, or maybe even, first timers, do you think that's smart of them to do? Is that something you'd recommend?
It didn't hurt anything. Looking back on it, I think it was probably a positive that I had somebody that was there that knew the greens more. I'll tell you, that can be a pretty lonely place around there, even though there's a lot of people around. And, so having a caddy that, is your friend and cares, some of the loneliest times I've ever had in my life is when there were a lot of people around, but I felt like an alien. And, playing bad can cause you to feel that way. You're shaking your head because you know what I'm talking about. Golf is a lonely sport, and, I always admired Trevino and Fuzzy Zeller and people like that because they were able to make it a social game. I couldn't think and make it a social game. I had to be more of a concentrated effort for me. and that meant less socializing.
I tell parents that come in here when they're griping about little Johnny not playing really well in a tournament or whatever, and I'm like, man, if you've never felt it, the worst feeling in the world is being on hole 10, 11, 12 and being 10 over, 8 over, way worse than your normal score is, and you've got 5 or 6, 7 more holes to play, and you're like, what am I doing out here? This is, like you said, you felt like an alien. You almost have to smack yourself and remind yourself that you're here and you still got some holes to play, because it is hell. It is, in my opinion, one of the worst feelings in the world.
So something that needs to be said at this point for all of the people out there listening: when you make a mistake in your field, whatever that is, how many people actually know it?
Yeah.
I used to tell my dad this all the time. He would talk to me about my mistakes out there, and I'd say, so Dad, I said, when you make a mistake in the oil business, maybe whoever, your banker, your secretary, your lawyer, they may know about it, but there may be 5 or 6 people that know about it. When you play at Augusta and you make a mistake, thousands of people know about it, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And in Tiger Woods' case, millions of people know about it. And, there's a little pressure that goes along with that.
For sure. Yeah. Talk about staying in the moment, making your world small, like that's what Tiger is the best at. But especially this week, it's a lot easier said than done. How did your tournament prep look the week of Augusta? Was your schedule any different because of the par 3? Did you ever skip the par 3, or do they require you to play in the par 3? Like, what does all that look like?
I never ever remember anybody telling me I had to play in the par 3. I don't recall that. I don't recall ever skipping the par 3. Par 3 was kind of fun, actually. The ball spun a lot. And, you were hitting the ball behind the hole, trying to spin it back into the hole. And, there was 35,000 or whatever the number of people, and it's all in this little bitty area. So, I made a hole in one time on the 7th hole there. I'll never forget it. Ball spun back about 30 feet. I was later in the day, and you could tell the crowd knew exactly 6 or 7 feet from the hole that the ball was going to have a chance, because they'd seen so many break. And, I remember making it, and it was just the loudest shrill I have ever heard in my life. Hair stood up on your back. It was so loud. So
did you alter your the amount of practice rounds you played because of the par 3, or did it really affect you?
No, usually a lot of times I maybe only played 9 holes on Wednesday morning. By that time, the Masters and all the majors were the only ones that you played more than one practice round on, really, because you had the practice round and then the Pro-Am. And then if you'd played on the tour for quite a while, a lot of times your practice round was the Pro-Am round, and because you already knew the golf course. So, you played a lot of practice rounds at Augusta. You played Monday, Tuesday. Sometimes you fly in there on Sunday, play Sunday too. So there was a lot of golf before the tournament ever started.
Yeah, easy, especially your first couple times out there, easy to wear yourself out before the tournament starts. What are your thoughts on, Augusta is the only course that hosts the same major every year. I think that's a good thing for golf? Do you think that, we should have more majors at the same courses, or do you think it's just unique to what Augusta brings to the table?
Well, it's unique. It's one, though, that everybody embraces, because even the fans feel like they know Augusta, even though they don't know it very well. But they really do feel like they know it. That's one reason why I think TPC is, I can't believe they've never ever designated it as a major, because, it's kind of beginning to have that same feel. Everybody knows what the golf course is going to lay out there for everybody. And
for sure, the last 3, 16, 17, 18.
Yeah. And, Augusta is probably the most promoted golf tournament in the world. They promote it what does Jim Nance say? A sporting event like no other, or whatever he says. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it is. It's just that, and CBS treats it that way, and you know, they start promoting that tournament months out, and you know, and the other part of that that's kind of fun, it gets everybody's juices flowing, is it's the beginning of golf season. You know, everybody sitting at home is thinking, man, Master says I'm fixing to start to play a lot of golf from this point forward.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point. We've had multiple days above 70 here in Houston. It's starting to warm up a little bit, and the ground's starting to firm up a little bit. And you're exactly right. It feels like getting into late spring, early summer.
Yeah, driving to work, you know, you see all the azaleas in bloom.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, I bet Augusta looks beautiful right now with that. That was probably the best part about Augusta, just how beautiful it is. Yeah. I mean, there's no place that I've ever played that actually had the beauty. And you know, it's hidden. Like I said, you can't see it from the front side of the clubhouse. And when you walk around to the other side and you see the beautiful pine trees, and the pine straw, and the azaleas, and the beautiful green grass, I don't believe anybody, you know, that might be what golf in heaven looks like.
That's what I keep hoping. And then I keep quizzing you on your success there. And you're like, well, I didn't play that well. Didn't really care for Augusta, and it hurts my heart.
Well, you know what? There's a difference though. I always was trying to make a name for myself at Augusta, you know, and I was trying to create an identity out of it. You know, if I get to heaven and that's the way the golf course looks, I ain't got anything else to prove, and I'm not competing. I'm just going to play.
You're not going to ask God to send you back somewhere else since it happened to be Augusta.
No, and I tell you what, I'm hoping we're not going to keep score anymore. You know, I think that's kind of, you know, we do that sort of thing on earth. We keep score, whether it's with money or your card or whatever else here. You know, I think once you get to heaven, there's no more keeping score.
Is it always the best manicured golf course? I mean, it looks perfect on television. Is it better manicured than all the other great golf courses you guys play?
Well, different because it's solid ryegrass, you know. So, you know, TPC was always in perfect shape. The tour had that. I'll tell you, one that was equally as good all the time was Deerfield Village. Yeah, it was always perfect shape, and Jack just wouldn't have it any other way.
So let's go a little bit deeper into tournament prep. I played in the tournament the last couple of days, and you know, love your take on, you know, how you prepared for golf courses, especially ones like, say it was at a new course. One of the tournaments had a new course this year, and you flew in late Monday night or even Tuesday and only got to play one practice round. How did you handle it? Let's ask this. How did you handle it at Augusta? Did you always try to putt to where you thought the hole, you know, they're normally the same 4 pins pretty much every year on each hole. Did you always putt to those locations? How did you prepare for, you know, where you thought the pins were going to be?
You know, most practice rounds, I never putted at the hole. I'd hit a few putts around the hole just to make a couple, but most of the practice rounds, I putted at different places on the green where I thought the hole was going to be. You know, I didn't want to shoot a low score in a practice round because
you didn't? Why? I mean, why not?
They're hard to. I mean, I didn't like shooting low scores, and I was really happy early on in my career. They'd have a low pro in the pro-am. Really wasn't for a whole lot of money, but you know, we weren't playing for a whole lot of money either, and you know, and because we were keeping score, you know, there was pride. So if you made 4 or 5 birdies early, you know, say, okay, let's see how low I can go today. Well, that made it difficult to go low in the tournament. Before too long, you know, the tour quit going with low pro. They started just having team. And I was really happy about that because that meant we didn't have to putt out. If we weren't in the hole, you know, we didn't have to putt out. So we weren't keeping score after that. I think it's really hard in practice rounds to be playing for a score. Shoot really good or shoot really bad. Either way, it can affect you. And so I just kind of strolled along in the practice rounds.
Yeah, so many times we'll get parents of kids come in and say, little Johnny, man, he played great in the practice round, shot 71 and then shot 84 in the tournament. He's just a head case. He's just there's something mentally wrong with him. And it's always like, well, one, quit keeping score. Well, why? Well, because to your point, you go shoot 3 or 4 under in the practice round and then you bogey the first 3 holes in the tournament. Like you can't, it's so hard to stay present there. Your mind's going to go back to, oh my gosh, well, I'm already 6 shots worse than I was the day before. It's so hard to play committed golf that way.
Well, you mentioned a minute ago if I'd never played the golf course before. When you've never played a golf course before, you kind of have a cautious outlook. I never went there. Golf courses that fit my eye that I saw, I might go there thinking I've got a chance to win. Like Riviera fit my eye really well. So I always went to Riviera thinking, I might, if things fit this week, I could be contending. And I did several times. Only won there once, but I contended quite a few times. And, felt the same way about TPC. But we're talking Augusta. I never felt that way at Augusta.
Yeah.
And, so my point being is when you go to a new golf course, you're cautiously looking at this. And as you play, the more holes that fit your eye, the more you begin to get a little bit more confident. Like my game, I don't have to change my game here to perform well here. And, I always hated seeing a golf course where I felt like I needed to become somebody new in order to play well there, because it's really tough once you've made it out there to reinvent yourself. And, we see it in here all the time, reinventing somebody. If they're not real young, I don't think there is such a thing as reinventing somebody.
It especially if their original somebody was pretty good,
Yeah.
If they come in and they're older and they, struggling and never been all that great, then it's a little easier to make some changes. But if the previous self had some ability, that does make it a little bit difficult. So name some, if kind of off the top of your head, or situations where it didn't fit your eye. And I know you mentioned Augusta some, but were there other courses, British Open courses, or I guess what I'm wanting to get at is how do you mentally prepare yourself to play your best when the course doesn't really set up that well for you?
Well, if the course doesn't set up well for you there, you've got a little history there. So the first thing you got to do is block the history if you can. And, if the course didn't fit me real well, I didn't push it too much. I played a little bit more conservative and didn't really.
So what were your goals for that week? Like, stay Augusta again, because we've been talking about it, and you're going into it not Riviera, not TPC, Sawgrass, not Muirfield, not some of the places you had success with or at. Did you set goals? Did you have a goal like, goals top 10? Did you even think that far ahead? How did you?
I didn't think that far ahead there. I tried to accept what I could do with a driver, and, which if you fade it there, you were working against some of the holes. So the ball didn't roll out near as far. So I'll give you, for instance, number 9. Number 9 was a really hard hole for me, because if I could really turn it over, I could get it a lot further down the hill, which made it an easier second shot into the green. The further up on the hill you are, the more downhill your lie is to an uphill green, to a green that's sitting there not really wanting to accept this shot.
Yeah.
And, so, I found myself just trying to make sure that I accepted where I was, and I didn't try to do too much on the second shot. You know, you'd get to the second shot a lot of times and you thought, well, if I could have just turned that over a little bit, I had 20 yards further down the hill and I wouldn't have had this downhill hanging lie that I've got right now. Well, when you think that way, well, you're trying to make up the difference on that second shot.
Yep.
Rather than forget about that. This is what you've got.
Yep.
And, you know, I need that kind of human nature. We're always wanting what we don't have, you know?
Well, and especially at a place like that where you bite off just a little bit more than you can chew, you take on a front pin on 9 and it comes up, especially from a down slope from a little farther back than you want, you're hitting 8-iron or 7-iron into that hole and you come up a yard short, you may have a 50-yard pitch shot and half the same scenario. Now you got to hit it past the hole. Now you got a 10-footer straight downhill for par or bogey.
You might have a 100-yard shot coming back.
Yeah. Come all the way back.
That's how up and downhill that is.
You know, the thing that kept popping into my head when you were talking about that is how much patience you need at places that you aren't super comfortable with, how much patience and how much commitment you need. But we talk about that for everything, for every place or every shot we have, how much patience, how much commitment you need. Do you think if you compare the places you were uncomfortable at to the places that you kind of had more of a green light, to me, it seems like the goal is still the same. You've got to you've got to stay patient. You've got to have a plan. You've got to be committed. I mean, would you know, obviously the game plan changed a little bit, but from a mental standpoint, it really doesn't, does it?
No, it really doesn't. You know, while you were asking that question, one of the things that popped into my head is the big scoreboards that are at Augusta. They're not the electronic scoreboards that travel around with the tour. They're big white scoreboards. And one of the things that popped into my head is you're well aware of what's going on the golf course because the crowds are so big and there's the birdies and the eagles, you hear about them all over the golf course from the crowd. You don't know who made it, but the crowd tells you somebody important made that. And it's hard to stay patient because the boards are all over the place. And, you know, you get a little bit behind the 8 ball and you're trying to make up some ground or whatever else. It's hard to stay patient at Augusta. And if you don't stay patient at Augusta, it'll eat your lunch sometimes. And, you know, you try to steal from Augusta and it'll steal from you.
Yeah, I just keep thinking of how on the edge a lot of those approach shots are. You mentioned 11, back left on 11. If you miss it right at the bunker, you blow it out right, you've got a really tough pitch shot, and then you happen to turn that thing over. As Mr. Hogan said, if he ever hit it left of the center of the green there, he missed that shot. But if you take on a little bit there and it rolls off, or 13 or 15, or there's just so many little shots on the edge. One of the things I didn't ask before was, did you change your wedge equipment at all to handle the tight lies there?
No, I never did.
Did other guys you know of? Did they change? Did they go to less bounce or do anything different there?
I don't really recall a lot of that. But I was so into what I was trying to do, I wasn't paying attention to what everybody else was doing.
And I mean, there's a lot more options now. Back then, I mean, half the tour was playing the same ping wedge, right?
Yeah,
a lot of the I2s, a lot of the I2s out there.
That's what I had in my bag.
Did I kind of asked you this before, but were you a believer of, and for all the majors, did you like to play the week before?
I like to play if I was playing well the week before. So, you know, I wanted to carry it into the next event. You know, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was how tired you get when you played a lot, you know, or haven't played a lot and then play 3 or 4 rounds in a row, you know. That's what I based on whether I was going to play or not play, was how I was physically feeling. It is grueling to play a lot of golf, you know, and a tour player doesn't pay a lot of attention to that because they've been playing a lot of golf. You know, they actually, somehow, it seemed like I did better if I kept playing. because my body would want to tighten up a little bit. And if I kept playing and working, walking and everything else, swinging a lot, my swing felt like it was, it knew where to go. And, if I took off for a week, all of a sudden I didn't know where I was, what I needed to do. So, whether I played the week before or not, usually was determined. If I wasn't playing very well, I'd take off and go to work on something, trying to get something, find something. And, but if I was playing decent, usually it was Houston the week before Augusta. And I liked the golf course down here. So,
yeah, for the longest time, it was touted as kind of an Augusta junior as far as how good a shape it was in. And it was really good prep for the week before, the week before Augusta. And a lot of that field had gotten bigger and better when it was Golf Club of Houston. But with you, was it at TPC?
Yeah. Well, towards the end of my career, it was at Golf Club of Houston, but it was at TPC before. And that's the one I liked. So that's why I like playing there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, so going to be an exciting week. Tiger, obviously, coming back is awesome. And then the fact that it's Augusta. Put you on the spot. Let's pick winners. Who you think's got the who you pulling for, or not pulling for, but who do you think's gonna win this week?
Well, that's a good question. It was easier to do a long time ago because there wasn't but a few people that you really thought had a chance. Now there's 25 or 30 guys that could easily win the golf tournament. So, what I hope is that there's 3 or 4 guys with a chance to win going into 13 on Sunday afternoon. And I think it would be world class if Tiger was one of those guys. I think the world would be on fire if he happened to be one of those 3 or 4 guys. And, Augusta's fun to watch. It's not as fun to play, but
hurts my heart. It hurts my heart to hear you say that.
But anyway, there's a lot of history there for me. And, now Fred Ridley is the head of the Masters, and Fred and I go back a long ways. He was my agent the first 2 or 3 years that I was out on the tour. And he's a lawyer out of Tampa, and a really good player in his own right, and a great guy. And so I love seeing him in his position. It's really funny. I should say this about Fred. He U.S. amateur champion, beat Andy Bean and chose to go a different route with his law degree. And a lot of people thought he made a real big mistake by doing that. I don't think he made a big mistake by doing that.
No, I think he's doing okay. He did all right.
I think he's doing all right.
All right, I'll go first. We got to pick winners. I'm gonna pick DJ. DJ's always a favorite of mine. It was between him and Rahm. I'm gonna pick DJ. He played well at the match play and has had success at Augusta. So I'm picking Dustin, and I would love to see Tiger. I guess with Tiger, I just want to see him. I want to see him play well and not look hurt. I don't want to see him limping around, right? And it'll be fascinating to see. But man, if he's got a shot to contend or a top 10 or making a run on Sunday, the world is going to stand still and watch. It's going to be crazy.
So I'm going to say that if he looks hurt and he's contending, it's even more powerful.
No, for sure. I'm just saying, like on Thursday or Friday, if he's kind of limping down there and doesn't look that healthy.
He already won a U.S. Open limping around, so he knows how to do that. Man, I don't know. I don't know who I want to pick. I would say I keep saying that Rory's got to come through one day. He's got to break through. With the shot that he hits, this golf course ought to fit him perfect.
Yep.
I can tell you, he likes it from an eye standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Because it fits his game.
Yep. And you can't be leading on the back nine of Sunday at Augusta multiple times and not like the golf course. He just hadn't closed it out yet.
He just hasn't closed it out yet. it's not. He's in the last group tomorrow, and that may be okay tomorrow because it's been raining there quite a bit. You know, sometimes the last group is a disadvantage because, especially early on in the week, because the golf course is much harder late in the day like that. So, but may be okay now.
So Rory, you gonna go with Rory?
I'm gonna go with Rory.
Go with your
just
heart.
because I want. He's a good guy. I want to see him win there.
Hey, I'm all for that. Go with your heart. All right, there you have it, folks. Rory and DJ are our picks. Don't bet the house on it. There's
For sure.
Proceed with caution, right?
Yeah.
Well, enjoy Tiger. Enjoy the Masters as always. Thanks again for joining in. Hal, take us home.
I'm excited to watch the Masters. You know, I'll say this right now before anything else. I like the Masters more now that I don't play anymore than when I was playing there. But anyway, I'll be excited on my couch watching the Masters this week, pulling for Tiger. I think this is an incredible thing for him to be able to come back this week and play. I'd love to be Charlie. I'd love to be able to watch him from a son's perspective. He's got to be so proud of his dad. So anyway, have fun, everybody, watching the Masters.
Thanks. See you next week.
Be the right club today. Yes!